You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. Here we go. Welcome back to the GrantCast. My name is Grant Baciocco, and it is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Always appreciate a listen of the GrantCast here in my dumb ramblings. A couple things I wanted to say as we get started here. In the last episode number 212, I talked about how there hadn't been a podcast in a while, and it was my goal to do a podcast every week for 52 weeks. And then I remembered shortly after it was all recorded and set up to go out, and there was no way to change it, that that was not the goal. The goal was a podcast every other week. So I'm still behind, but not as behind as I led myself to believe. And hopefully we are catching up. It's March 21st as I'm recording this today. Most of you probably will not hear it until April, unless you are one of my amazing patrons, in which case you will get it sooner. I did want to mention that right now, if this does go out in April, right now I am in the middle of a sort of crowdfunding campaign to get a plush made of my puppet character, Toiley. And the goal is 300. If we don't reach that minimum requirement, then the plush will not be made. And I'm hoping that they will get made. This has been a long, trying process that quite possibly I will do an episode on in the future, but I will not do it now. It's just been very, very frustrating, and there you go. Fingers crossed, because I think this campaign is going to launch tomorrow, March 22nd. That's what they've told me. But that's part of the whole thing, is the communication with this company that's doing it. Anyway, so please check out thetoiley.com/plush, thetoiley.com/plush. And even if you can't support the campaign and pick yourself up a Toiley plush, they're pretty great. I have the sample one, and it's really it's nice. It's a nice plush. But anyway, you can share it with friends, or maybe get one for a younger family member or something like that. It will be a lot of fun. I listened to. Here's the thing. Stephen edits, the amazing Stephen Staver, who I mentioned last time, edits these podcasts, and he does a fantastic job editing these podcasts. But, he sends them back to me, and I always listen to them. I give them one last listen before they go out, just to make sure that they sound good. And I don't know. I don't like listening to myself like that. I don't mind listening like for Under the Puppet, where I'm interviewing somebody. That's fine. I can listen to that. But for these podcasts, I don't know. I don't like it. And I think it's not interesting, and I think it is boring, and I think for whatever reason that talking like this and doing this kind of podcast, I have not found what my voice is. Everyone always says you have to find your voice and always speak in your voice. I listen to great podcasts like The Bitterest Pill by Dan Klass and The Verge of the Fringe by Lance Anderson, both two master storytellers. And I just kind of sit here and think, like, how can I get this to sound like those in my mind? Now, I know I can't be Dan. I can't be Lance. So whatever I do is going to sound different. And then there's sometimes I just think it's like, oh, you shouldn't tell personal stories because they're very good at telling personal stories. You should tell, or you should do like comedy stuff because you're good at that. So I don't know. I would love to hear what you think. If you think these I call them audio blogs, but I don't know if they're interesting or whatever. But you can let me know. All right. Well, you know what I wanted to talk about, and I don't know how long this story is going to go, but I recently, as I mentioned last time, took a trip to Orlando to visit my good friend John B. DeHaas, and we had a great time. But I wanted to talk about flying out there. And since COVID, the airlines, and this is mainly Southwest because that's the airline I take the most, they've really cut back on their routes and changed their routes and all this stuff. And it always used to be when I would fly to Orlando, I would fly from Burbank to Phoenix and then Phoenix to Orlando. Well, that Phoenix to Orlando flight, as far as I can tell, doesn't exist anymore. And the cool thing about that flight always was I would leave early in the morning here, and by the time I got to Orlando, it would be like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There would be time to go check in the hotel and then maybe get an hour or so in the parks, depending on Walt Disney World, depending on how late they were open. Well, that flight doesn't exist anymore. And really, the earliest you can get in now flying out of Burbank is like 8:30. So by the time you get to wherever you're going, usually the parks are closed. So it's a bummer that that flight isn't there. Now, I could fly out of LAX, and I could probably get a direct flight, and I could probably get in there early afternoon. But driving from where I am to LAX is such a pain that it is not worth it. It is worth it to pay just a hair more to fly out of Burbank and get there a little bit later in the grand scheme of things, because fighting the traffic over to LAX and then fighting the traffic when I get back from Orlando from LAX is a thing. So this time around, now I went to Walt Disney World in July of last year. And so that was, that was like the first time I'd flown since the pandemic out to Orlando. And then this time there were a couple different flight options available, but they all still got in like at 8:30. But instead of, I forget where I stopped the year before, but this year I stopped in Dallas. And I liked that because it's like, to me, it's like, oh, it's kind of a halfway point. So it's a little bit of a break. So you fly from Burbank to Dallas, you get like an hour layover, and then you fly from Dallas to Orlando, and everything is fantastic. So that's what I did. But it was just like, I love traveling. It is great. But every once in a while, like the actual process of getting to where you're going is a little bit of a headache. And so I just was not feeling it on the flight out there. To get out there, and made matters worse that I got a soda on the flight, and I had drank most of the soda. It was a fully packed flight, so there was no space, no room for anything. Everybody was like very grouchy, and halfway through the flight, as I sipped my soda, the gentleman in the seat next to me, who was continually coughing the whole time and sniffing and snorting and wiping his nose on his sleeve. It was so gross. I was already in a bad mood. He says, I got to get up and use the restroom. And as I that's the other thing was I had plugged in my iPad and I had downloaded a bunch of movies and TV shows to watch on the flight, and totally forgot my iPad. So I didn't have my iPad on this trip. And I realized the moment Suzanne had dropped me off at the airport, but it was too late to go back and get it. And I had to check in and all that kind of blah. So I was grumpy about that. I did pay for internet, so I was surfing on my phone, but then I was worried about the phone running out of battery and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, this guy says he has to get up. So I had bought a book. That's how bored I was. I had bought a book at the bookstore. And so I closed the book and my tray is down. And as I kind of adjust things around on the tray, I tip my cup forward over the edge of the tray. Now, there was not that much soda in it, and there was a little bit, but there was just ice cubes, mostly ice cubes and some soda. As I tipped that forward, I think what I did was I bumped the tray and it tipped forward. It all fell down perfectly on my right foot, completely soaked the toe of my tennis shoe. And so then not only is this guy trying to get out to go to the bathroom, there's ice on the floor. I'm worried that it got on his stuff. Luckily, it didn't get on his stuff. But I'm cleaning up the ice as he's getting by and all this other stuff. So now I have a soggy foot like an hour into this journey to Orlando, like this 7-hour plane journey from Burbank to Orlando. So after sitting there with my wet shoe for a while, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get up. I'm going to go to the restroom. I'm going to take off my socks. because my other shoe was fine, but I can't wear socks on one foot and no socks on another foot, and then it's just weird to me. So I'm going to take off my socks, and I'll put them in a air sickness bag because one of them is completely covered in soda. Then I'm going to really wipe down the inside of my shoe. It's still going to be damp, but just to get any sort of moisture or anything out of that. And then I will put my shoe back on. And when I get to Dallas, I will look for socks. And a new clean pair of socks will change your life, right? Isn't that people say like, change your socks halfway through the day, and it really makes you feel good. When I'm at home, I'm mostly barefoot the entire time, so socks, forget about it. But I can totally see that, where if you put on a new pair of socks in the middle of the day, you'll feel great. So I was really looking forward to that. So this is my plan. This is what I decide to do. I am at the age now where I have to wear glasses when I'm reading. So I took my glasses off. I put them in my hoodie pocket, and which are just sort of the side pockets. It's not like a hoodie where there's the big front pocket, but anyway, little side pocket thing. I get up, I wait for the restroom to be empty. I go into the restroom, and I totally follow through with my plan. Now, you know how small those restrooms are. I'm a big guy, so I'm bumping around in that restroom. I am trying to do the balance where I don't want my bare foot, to touch the floor of the bathroom. And I don't want my shoelaces to touch the floor of the lavatory. So I'm doing this crazy one-legged stork thing to try and get them all, done. And then when I get the one shoe off that has been soaked, and I get that sock off and I put it in the air sickness bag, and I'm cleaning out the shoe with some paper towels. I'm balancing on one foot, leaning up against the wall, get the shoe back on. It's pretty good. It's still a little damp, but it's pretty good. Luckily, as I said, there wasn't a lot of soda. It was kind of like ice water. So my shoe wasn't sticky. So that was good. And then I take off the other shoe. I'm doing the stork thing on the other leg, trying to get that sock off, put it on, tie my shoes, totally complete. This has really gone well. I'm really excited about it. So I'm like, while I'm here, I might as well go to the bathroom. I lift up the toilet seat, and the moment I do, my glasses fall out of my pocket and land where? Yes, in the toilet bowl. So luckily, the person who had been in there before had flushed, but it's still airplane regular toilet water in there. So I take it out, and I immediately fill up the sink, and I'm soaking them, and I'm washing them and everything. And because they're the only glasses I brought on this trip, so I'm going to need them to read at certain points on this trip. And it was just like this. How could this day get any worse? And then when I landed, luckily in my backpack, I had a bacterial wipe. So as soon as I got back to the seat, I scrubbed every inch of those glasses within an inch of their life with the bacterial wipe. Landed in Dallas, spent the entire time looking for socks, and the only socks they had were Dallas Cowboy socks. You know what? Here's the thing. Airports, just stock some regular socks. Just regular white athletic socks. You don't need a lot of them, but I bet you they would sell pretty good. And I know that like some airports have like the sock exchange. It's a big store with all these different socks. Yeah, I didn't need that. You just, those little convenience stores, which I'm blanking on the name of right now. They've got the blue lettering. Whatever those stores are, just one little thing of socks. All right? One size fits all socks. Get it in there. Please. Because it's horrifying. It reminds me of this time when I was traveling somewhere. I hope I didn't tell this story on the podcast before, but I was traveling somewhere and I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom. I think I did tell this story on here, but I'm going to finish it because I've already launched into it. And I'm brushing my teeth, and then I went to spit, and the sink in the bathroom was very shallow. And the force of my spit sent toothpaste spit flying everywhere, including over the arm of the guy who was washing his hand next to me. And he was not happy. Luckily, the trip to Orlando was much better than the trip out there, and the trip back was fine. But still, you need socks in the airport. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GrantCast. I want to thank you for subscribing. I want to thank you for listening. A special shout out to all our patrons for making this show possible. I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you again very soon. Bye, everybody. This episode of the GrantCast was edited by Stephen Staver, who probably did the artwork as well. This episode was made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a pledge for as little as $1 a month. Big shout out to all of our patrons, and a special shout out to our patron producers, Eve Cunning, Kathy Crawford, Andrew Calcagno, Tony Urbano, Brandy, David Akers, Paul, Scott Armstrong, and Vicky Sebring. Patrons at the behind-the-scenes level and above get access to a video of a recording of this episode. If you'd like to become a patron and receive episodes of the GrantCast before they are released, visit patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly pledge today. And thank you for your support. This episode of the GrantCast is copyright 2023 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com.
You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.